We're gonna stay in G. Ross Lord Park. And welcome Nathalie Wood, whose internal supervisor is Danijela. And the external supervisors are Murray Fulmer and Paul Scribner from Sanofi Pasteur. Now.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Natalie, and today I'll be sharing with you all my capstone project, Invasive Plant Abundance and Spatial Distribution in an Urban Ravine. Specifically, my study focuses on the current vegetation trends, as well as some management implications within G. Ross Lord Park in Toronto. And this summer, I completed my internship working with Sanofi, as well as with Matt, who just shared his presentation with us. The clickers, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, the clicker is not. Oh, sorry. Okay. So just an outline of what I'll be covering today. I'll first just get into some background on Toronto's ravines, as well as the threats they face, and share with you my study's objectives. I'll explain how my data was collected and analyzed and present to you my findings. And then I'll go into some specific management recommendations for Sanofi and other stakeholders and a short conclusion. So Toronto is known for having the largest urban ravine network in the entire world, and this covers around 17% of the total land area within the city. Ravines have also been found to contain over half of the total canopy cover within the city, which is very significant for urban biodiversity. And they have a variety of ecosystem types, including meadows, forests, and wetlands as well, which just support wildlife and provide food and habitat and shelter for those wildlife. And one of the major threats faced by these locations is the ever-increasing abundance of non-native invasive plant species. And there was one study showing a 17% increase of non-natives between 2015 and 2018. As well as another study showing a 30% increase in Norway maple canopy cover between 1977 and 2017. So this is very significant for the overstory as well. And not all non-native plants are considered invasive. There's various physiological reasons for why they can spread and just outcompete native plants within urban ecosystems. This includes with above ground seeds that are very abundant, as well as through underground rhizomes that can spread very fast. And because of the size of Toronto's ravine network, many areas in the city don't have sufficient long-term monitoring in place in order to track changes to the forest structure over time. And it's also important to have these monitoring efforts in place to measure how efficient invasive control methods are within these areas. Sanofi has been very involved in local ravine stewardship at G. Ross Lord Park, and there's many initiatives that they currently participate in, including monitoring, removing garbage from the parks, and involving their employees in stewardship activities. And they have many plans for future involvement in the future. So I had three main objectives for my study. The first was to identify management priority non-native invasive plant species within the ravine. Secondly, I wanted to quantify and map the current abundance trends and also provide Sanofi and stakeholders with management recommendations based on my findings. So this is where G. Ross Lord Park is located. It's in North York, Toronto, and this is just a map of the ravine network, so you can see how expansive it is across the city. So zooming in closer, this is my study area right here, which is 14 hectares, and it follows the Don River on the west side, and the Sanofi property is highlighted in yellow. We established 30 new sampling plots within this study area specifically. And we also had an invasive species presence mapping grid that was established over the entire study area. Looking at those methods a little bit closer, we used vegetation sampling protocol, which is a standardized plot-based method to collect detailed site data. And each circular plot is 400 meters squared, as you can see here. We visually estimated the abundance values for 4 different vegetation layers. including herb, shrub, subcanopy, and canopy, with various heights associated with them, as you can see. And for the presence grid, we used 25 by 25 meter grid cells, and we walked through these cells to identify the most common non-native invasive plant species that are also located in over 10% of all of the Toronto VSP plots, which there's about 400 plus of those. And to rank the aggressiveness of invasives, I used this document right here, produced by the Society for Ecological Restoration, Ontario. And it allowed me to filter data to produce categories 1 to 3, which represent top, medium, and local priority for management. To measure abundance patterns for plots, I used 2 different spatial autocorrelation tests for each species by vegetation layer. The first is a global test called the Moran's Index, and it allowed me to detect patterns across the entire study area, and it grouped these values into either clustered, random, or dispersed, and then also had significance as well. And then the second test is called the Gettysburg GI statistic, and this is more of a local test to map specific locations of either high or low abundance. And it can be true that there are local abundance values that are very high, but they're not statistically significant globally. So going into my results section, this map displays the number of invasive species present in each grid cell. So as you can see, most of the grid cells have fairly high values highlighted in red. And the top value was 15, while the lowest was 2 in green. And near the southern end of the study area, there seems to be a lower diversity of these non-native species. And after filtering my data with that ranking document that I mentioned, I found 8 top priority invasives, 3 that were medium priority, and 6 that were local priority. It's also worth noting that I didn't include any species present in less than 5 plots because I wanted to focus on the most widespread invasives. So species like Phragmites weren't included in this study since it's more of a woodland study as well. So these are the 8 invasives that were top priority, and I'll just go through them one by one to show you where they are in the ravine and the trends that we saw. Starting off with Norway maple, this species was present in all of the vegetation covers, layers, but there was higher abundance within the subcanopy and canopy, which you can see from the box plot right here. And then the canopy had a very high median value, close to around 20% cover. Looking at the presence map here, you can see it's located on the right-hand side. It's located mostly in one specific area of the ravine. And then those high values can be seen again with graduated circles, which I used to show these values on a map. These high values up to 20 to 30% coverage for plots is also something that's been studied in the city of Toronto with a 14.5% leaf index value. So there's that. For garlic mustard, this was found in the herb layer with the majority of plots showing very small patch sizes. Trace values were typically the most that were observed, although there are some very clear outliers that show very high abundance values, as you can see from those points up there. This was very widespread throughout the entire study area with 67% grid coverage. And then, as you can see, there's a very clear hotspot for garlic mustard in the northern portion of the ravine from the abundance map. And yeah, values get up to 20% coverage. And a reason for this could be because garlic mustard prefers roadsides and like closer to edge habitats. So this could be one of the reasons why we saw more of them up there. Dog strangling vine was found mostly in the herb layer, although there is one outlier showing a 4% coverage for plots, but most values were fairly low. And as you'll see from the presence map, it was not found in the majority of plots, although there were more grid cells that we observed presence near the top of the study area. And then that one outlier I mentioned is also at that area too. And although VSP, we weren't able to capture all of the large patch sizes, we did visually see that there were very large patches within that location near close to Steeles Avenue. And one reason why this could be for seeing lower percent values within the study area could be because of the alley effect or alley effect. And this is where it's a positive feedback loop between reproduction and growth rate and how big the population sizes are. European euonymus was found in fairly low values with a few outliers within the herb and shrub layer. It was found in about 50% of the plots, and there was a local hotspot found as well for this one. And it's also widespread throughout southern Ontario and different provinces, as well as the Northeast United States. So there were two top priority invasive bush honeysuckles found in the study area. Tatarian honeysuckle was more aggressive, so we'll focus on that one. And it was found with a median of about 2% coverage. Records of this species are kind of dispersed throughout the study area, although there is a lack of presence and plot presence in the southern portion of the study area, with one locally high hotspot of around 8%. And these are also reliable indicators of indicating riparian disturbance as well. And next we have reed canary grass. This was found mainly in the herb layer, with one outlier reaching high values close to 30%, as you can see here. And this created a very strong hotspot for this species. And this can have significant impacts for diversity of invertebrates and other plant species trying to grow next to this patch. So that was another strong hotspot, although we weren't able to record grid presence for this since it wasn't present in more than 10% of VSP plots in Toronto. For common buckthorn, this was by far the most widespread species with presence in most of the plots and some outliers. As you can see here, it was very abundant as well. So yeah, every single grid cell that we measured did have presence of buckthorn. It was very widespread and high values, as I mentioned, which can have negative effects on the soil because of the allelopathic properties of the buckthorn plant. And then I just wanted to move into management. So for targeted management, these are the areas that had the highest hotspots that I would recommend some special management be placed into. So garlic mustard, Norway maple, and reed canary grass locations. And for recommendations, I focus on the Ontario Invasive Plant Council documents, and I would recommend a lot of collaboration between different groups just to increase the efficiency of these removal efforts. So pulling can be done for most of these species, and for larger woody plants, you can use something called a weed wrench to pull these out of the soil. It's recommended for dog strangling vine that you dig these with a shovel out of the ground. Just to get all the root systems. And solarization can be done for large patch sizes of dog strangling vine and reed canary grass. So it's where you put a tarp over top of a species after mowing it down, and it essentially cooks the species underneath, killing it throughout the growing season. The cut stump method is recommended for smaller plants that can't be removed manually by hand. And it's efficient to use an aquatic safe herbicide after on the actual stump so that the roots are killed as well. And then girdling can be used for those larger Norway maples that I mentioned, that there was a high hotspot of the canopy cover for those. And just a conclusion, so we saw major hotspots of garlic mustard, Norway, and reed canary grass. Common buckthorn was by far the most abundant, and it was abundant, but it was also very widespread. So there should be high management priority for this. And yeah, there can be lots of next steps in replanting after these removal efforts take place. And yeah, I just hope that this can go towards something and we can get to removing some of those invasives in the ravine. So these are my references, and I'd like to thank everyone so much. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Natalie. Paul Scribner from Sanofi Pasteur is on the line, I believe.
Murray's on the line.
Murray Fulmer, that's it.
Yes, I am here. I guess a couple of comments. Certainly what you've put together, Natalie, is essentially our work plan probably for the next several years for our Sanofi Ravine Stewardship Group. So certainly a lot of useful information in there. So I will say this will go a long ways towards our activities for the next at least few years while we work through the biodiversity assessment. And actually, a couple of new items that I was not aware of previously in terms of specific species, the honeysuckle and the canary grass. Those are new, so that's certainly good information for us to have going forward. Um, I guess looking at sort of the overall, because the area that we're stewarding is actually larger than the one that you were assessing. Um, would you recommend a similar assessment on the other side of the West Don River for this before we proceed? Because I think a lot of it will certainly migrate across both sides of the West Don River.
Mhm. Yeah, so one of the main reasons why we only did the grid presence for the study area that I had for my project is because we didn't have enough time, so we only had 2 weeks to do that entire area. So I think that it would be really beneficial to have new teams of MFC students go and do that so that we can have both abundance values as well as presence data. So yeah, I think that would be very beneficial before moving into removals, just to get a bigger picture of the entire ravine system. So.
Yeah, I think it'd be best to have a full picture of the entire ravine system for us to be able to make better decisions.
Mhm.
Um, That's the only question I had. I thought all the content was very well done and very well presented, and certainly provides us a lot of useful information going forward.
Thank you, Marie. Paul, do you have a question? Emily, hello, Glenn. Didn't mention the amount of bulk being actually dealing with something so a little bit of resistance. But what I want to say was a few years ago I had the opportunity to visit this boss actually the gardens in Cape Town. And that's about the 200 this one gardens in forest. Folks that was 75 years ago, it was invested in invasive. That's what it was. It's not in the storage. No, it's falling. So it can be done. The question I had was about grid methodology. Are there other grids, grid methodologies? Why, and it's sort of why this one?
So this one was the one that Danijela actually helped us with to develop, just to put it over the area, and then it made it easier to input data while we were going through the field. So there wasn't necessarily a specific reason other than just to see where these species were located. But yeah, I'm actually not aware. I'm not sure about other methodologies for the grid method specifically, but maybe Danijela might know more about this. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, thank you. I've noticed certain non-natives tend to, I feel that they're working in cahoots. Were you able to do any analysis of plants that you're seeing co-occur in the among the non-natives?
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't run any analyses on that specifically. But I think that like buckthorn and Manitoba maple tend to grow close together. Garlic mustard, like when we were in the ravine, it was kind of hard to see trends because everything was so dense. Although there were clear patches of areas that were like mostly buckthorn or mostly like a certain species for the understory. So yeah, it just depends on there's various other things that can influence that as well, such as soil and how close it is to the river, and just there's so many factors to consider. Yeah.
Okay, I'll pass it to Danijela.
Yeah, great. Good. Thank you so much. It's very nice.
Yeah.
As for the grid, that's the system we'll be using for invasive species because they are so spread. Plants that evolve. We use that in Eastern Ontario for Canadian wildlife service. Very similar with invasive species medicine. My question is about the non-renewable plots.
Mhm.
Could you go?
Sure.
Slide.
Ah. It goes at the start. Yeah.
That's quite interesting. Do you have any idea of why that might be?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's actually, yeah, it was surprising to me too. We thought that we would find a lot more Norway maple in the ravine because it's so prevalent in other ravines. The only thing I can think of, it might be because of the historical, just for, these lands used to have agriculture on them and maybe people planted some Norway maples. There's also, I guess, some street trees and other urban factors to consider too. But I'm not sure.
And not raise and all, but maybe, we want what trees you would find at the time there, because that's so obvious that there is one pocket that
Yeah.
found similar results for botanical garden one row.
Mhm.
That it's literally spreading from something that was planted.
Yeah, that could be too. I mean, it is an old property as well, Sanofi site, so yeah.
My other question, and I know you and me and Matt discussed this about the pheasants, should it be done like all non-native species, or?
It was a fairly long list that Matt and I had to find species. I forget how many species we were looking for, but it was a lot, like to look for like 50 different species in one 25 by 25 meter grid just to record presence. But I think just having a more specific list based on management priorities would be really helpful. Because then that would be focused on what you're actually going to do in the future as well. So, yeah.
More questions, Andreas?
Thanks, Nat. I was in the presentation a lot on maps. One question I have for you is that I know on the invasive removal, we want to conduct as much as possible, but one issue I see the Northern maple that makes up a lot of our canopy. And it kind of conflict with city Toronto's idea of getting that canopy at 40%, right? So I want you to just kind of talk about how you balance removing red trees and then giving some of the canopy. And I know obviously the big issue of pedestrian or able to that the branch just to provide that a little bit. And of course, it's invasive, but yeah, we just kind of speak about the balance of kind of you staying in the removal and placing.
Yeah, I would say like also there's I think a big difference between urban street cover and natural cover. So we see a lot of these seeds coming in from urban areas and infesting ravines, but because Norway maple is such a huge portion of Toronto's canopy cover, it's not great to kind of go out and cut those trees down. But within ravine systems specifically, I think that it's good to tackle those and then allow more native canopy cover to grow. But obviously this is, an ongoing process over many years. So yeah, I think it's still essential that we deal with the ones that are in the ravine systems right now.
Nice, beautiful maps, just great. Allelopathy.
Yeah.
Essentially all of your priority species are known to be allelopathy. Probably the weakest evidence for DSV, but all Northern maple, garlic cluster, euonymus, Titarian, honeysuckle, reed canary grass, common buckthorn. They're all engaging in chemical warfare. So you can try to remove them, but the effects persist. And what can that's not coming up here in the management applications, what potentially be done about that? Are there kind of models for successfully dealing with that problem?
Yeah, I think I don't know how many years certain seeds can stay on the landscape, but some of them can stay for many years or even decades. So it's just I think that it's hard to predict where these seeds are going to land because of, you know, the animals that take them to different areas of ravine. But I think that just ongoing monitoring, and continuing to have removal efforts and engaging the public as well is a big thing, because I think that, you know, without all the hands that you can get, it's impossible to deal with all of these invasives. So yeah, I don't have any specific recommendations for that, but yeah, that's what I'd say.
Laura has a comment from online.
So this comment comes from Stephen Smith. It came about 2 minutes ago. So he advises, look at trees growing inside the Sanofi property to find the seed trees for the Norway maples on the ravine side. He's added another comment. Metro Parks also planted Norway maples and other non-natives in the parkland for decades before they stopped managing the areas in the 1990s.
Okay,
He's done taking.
it's good to know.
Interesting, the plot thickens. Judy.
Yeah, a great presentation. I have nightmares watching it though, because there's so many invasives. And I'm just wondering, like, what's the pacing? Having been on the ground on these properties. And I'm thinking you take out the Norways, then other things come with a lot of
Yeah.
the other things. Like, did you think at all when you were on the ground and looking at these invasives and management as far as the pacing? I'm trying to figure out how can people actually there's a lot of priorities. Do they go and they clear all of the invasives out in those blocks, in those targeted areas? You know, do they focus on one species throughout? I know you identify those, so but it's just I'm just looking at it from the public helping out and volunteers, and it's overwhelming.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Where do you start?
So for what I would recommend to start would be near Steeles Avenue, because this was an area with a lot of garlic mustard and it's also easily accessible. A lot of the areas that we went through the ravine, there's not really any access points other than maybe the bridges that go across the river. So this was, yeah, just a challenge for us going through, but I can't imagine the public climbing over all of those things as well. So yeah, definitely just starting with the areas closer to public access. Yeah, that's what I was just.
Clear them all out.
I would do one by one. Like I think that it would make sense to do one area at a time. Yeah.
Thank you, Natalie.